On behalf of General Directorate of Fisheries, Ministry of Environment, Water and Agriculture, and Saudi Aquaculture Society, we welcome you here on 26th Aquaculture Biosecurity Workshop. We are very delighted to have our esteemed guests. Without further delay, I would like to request Mr. Engineer Ahmed Rashid Al-Balla, the Chairman of Saudi Aquaculture Society, for the welcome speech, please.
So this is welcome. So general welcoming. وأنوه لكم بهدف هذه الورشة والذي يتمثل في تطوير منظومة الأمن الحيوي لجميع المشاريع والأنشطة المتعلقة في هذا القطاع، وفي تعزيز مفهوم الاستدامة مع تنمية القطاع بصفة قابلة للتطبيق والتطوير. The main focal here is biosecurity. We are meeting for biosecurity, which is basically focal for sustainable aquaculture in Saudi Arabia. ولا يخفى على الجميع ما تحققه الجمعية السعودية للاستزراع المائي بالتعاون مع وزارة البيئة والمياه والزراعة، ممثلة بالإدارة العامة للثروة السمكية والبرنامج الوطني لتطوير قطاع الثروة السمكية في العديد من المشاريع من أجل تحقيق مستهدفات رؤية 2030 نحو المساهمة في تحقيق الأمن الغذائي من منتجات الاستزراع المائي. Stating here that we are in Saudi Aquaculture Society and the program for aquaculture working side by side to develop aquaculture in Saudi Arabia. يأتي مراقبة ومتابعة ضوابط الأمن الحيوي بمشاريع استزراع المملكة في مقدمة هذه البرامج التي تعمل على تنفيذها الجمعية السعودية بكفاءة عالية، مستثمرة فيها الخبرات التراكمية والتجارب السابقة من أجل تحقيق الاستدامة واستمرارية الإنتاج للشركات. ويمثل هذا الحدث أحد مخرجات المشروع الربع سنوية التي يتم فيها بشكل دوري تدارس حالة الأمن الحيوي ومناقشة أبرز التحديات والصعوبات والرفع بالتوصيات والمقترحات إلى الجهات العليا لاعتمادها، وبما يحقق منظمة الصحة الموحدة One Health، صحة الكائنات المستزرعة وسلامة صحة المستهلك الإنسان وحماية البيئة والحفاظ عليها. So this is meeting every quarters to basically review aquaculture, biosecurity and the achievement and what they call the One Health approach, which we are trying to implement in Saudi Arabia. Of course, all you know that biosecurity is sustainable in Saudi Arabia, and we achieve that by really being maybe one of the most clean environments in the world. Last month, with the ministry, we started to work also in operating the laboratory in Jeddah and Qatif خلال الشهر الماضي، وبالشراكة مع الوزارة تم البدء في تنفيذ وتشغيل مشروع صيانة مختبر صحة السلامة والأسماك بجدة والقطيف. This, as you know, this is very important project for the biosecurity and making sure that the results are really up to the bar, and basically that what we are saying is we are doing. وفي سبيل تعزيز هذه الأهداف فإن الجمعية ستوقع اليوم اتفاقية نظام LIMS، وهو نظام إدارة المختبرات الإلكتروني، مع شركة رائدة في هذا المجال، مما يساهم بإذن الله في رفع جودة العمل وفي تعزيز دقة النتائج. We will sign today, inshallah, memorandum of understanding for implementing LIMS in the laboratory. Today also we will sign another agreement with أرطات لتزويد المختبرات بالاحتياجات اللازمة من المواد الكيميائية. Also, inshallah, we will sign with another company to make sustainable supply for all kit and laboratory supply. Next month, inshallah, الجمعية will start the ISO 17025 2017, which make the laboratory, inshallah, one of the most reliable lab in Saudi Arabia and internationally. كما ستعمل الجمعية على العديد من البرامج من شأنها تطوير ورفع كفاءة الأداء بمختبر صحة وسلامة الأسماك بجدة والقطيف، وبما يحقق تطلعاتنا إن شاء الله في المستقبل. فيما يخص قطاع الاستزراع المائي بالمياه الداخلية، تعمل الجمعية جنبا إلى جنب مع الإدارة العامة للثروة السمكية، حيث سيتم تدشين مشروع الإشراف والمتابعة الفنية والإدارية لتطبيق أفضل الاستزراع المائي بالمياه الداخلية. I think you are all aware that we have now booming freshwater tilapia aquaculture in Saudi Arabia. Alhamdulillah, the society has signed with the ministry special agreement to monitor and to help these farmers to basically to be a good aquaculturist. حيث سيعمل المشروع على التطوير والارتقاء بالممارسات في هذه المشاريع بجميع مناطق المملكة وتدريب الكوادر ونقل الخبرات والمعرفة والتقنيات الرائدة بمجال الزراعة والأحياء المائية في المياه الداخلية بما يعزز الإنتاج وسيحافظ على استدامة وترشيد مخزون المياه وسيقلل الهدر في الموارد الطبيعية بما يحقق الكفاءة الإنتاجية المنشودة. Of course, as you know, fresh water is not really available resources, but Aquaculture Society will inshallah help the farmer to do more recycling and better utilization of the fresh water. We are also working into تعزيز فيما يخص تعزيز مخزون الأصول الوراثية، فإن الجمعية بالشراكة مع الوزارة ستعمل على مشروع حفظ وتطوير سلالة الأصول الوراثية للربيع والأسماك. We have also genetic preservation project for shrimp and tilapia, and we are working very closely with the ministry. Now, alhamdulillah, we have SPF Indicus, and we are working to have SPF tilapia إن شاء الله. وبصدد تطوير المشروع لفترات الثلاث سنوات القادمة مما سيوجد في المملكة مخزون استراتيجي خالي من المسببات المرضية، حيث يعتبر ذلك لبنة أساس في نجاح واستدامة صناعة الاستزراع المائي. As you can see from all this project, we are, alhamdulillah, working close with the ministry, and hopefully, inshallah, this will be a main pillar for sustainable aquaculture in the future. ومن خلال هذه المشاريع الحيوية وغيرها من مجالات العمل المشترك مع الجهات ذات العلاقة تستمر مسيرة الجمعية السعودية للاستزراع المائي خلال العام 2022 والأعوام المقبلة بإذن الله، وتتواصل إسهاماتها وإنجازاتها في دعم القطاع الاستزراع المائي، وجميع ذلك يتحقق بفضل الدعم المتواصل الذي تقدمه القيادة الرشيدة لهذه الدولة أيدها الله، ودعم وزارة البيئة والمياه والزراعة لتطوير هذا القطاع الحيوي والمهم في الأمن الغذائي والاقتصادي. وإذ وضعت الجمعية رؤية المملكة 2030 الرامية لتطوير قطاع الاستزراع المائي وتنميتها هدفا استراتيجيا، وهو الأمر الذي شكل عامل رئيسي في تطوير قطاع الاستزراع المائي من خلال البرامج والمبادرات النوعية وفق استراتيجيتها الهادفة إلى تقديم خدماتها وخبرتها الفنية والتسويقية المتنوعة، والاهتمام بتنمية الموارد سواء كانت المالية أو البشرية، وتفعيل دور الفرد في المجتمع وإشراكه مع الجمعية في تنفيذ برامجها ومبادراتها. وقد استمرت الجمعية في رسالتها ومهمتها في تقديم خدماتها، وشهدت برامجها ومشاريعها نموا كميا ونوعيا. الحمد لله تمكنت الجمعية بفترة وجيزة منذ تأسيسها في تحقيق جملة من أهدافها الكبرى والتي تصب في صالح التطوير وتنمية قطاع الاستزراع المائي في المملكة العربية السعودية. This is about the effort of the society into helping the aquaculture sustainable inshallah in Saudi Arabia. Finally, وفي الختام أتقدم بالشكر الجزيل أصالة عن نفسي ونيابة عن أعضاء مجلس الإدارة وجميع منسوبيها لمقام خادم الحرمين الشريفين وسمو ولي العهد الأمين على ما وجده هذا القطاع ولمسه من دعم لا محدود ورعاية كريمة من قبل حكومة المملكة رعاها الله. كما نشكر ونثمن الدور الكبير الذي يقوم به وزارة البيئة والمياه والزراعة ممثلة بوكالة الزراعة والإدارة العامة للثروة السمكية والبرنامج الوطني في دعم الجمعية السعودية للاستزراع المائي وصناعة الاستزراع المائي بالمملكة. راجين من الله التوفيق والسداد في هذا المحفل الكريم، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now I would like to invite Dr. Ali Sheikhi, the Director General of General Directorate of Fisheries and the CEO of National Fisheries Development Program. Mr. Dr. Ali Sheikhi, please.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم أجمعين. Good morning everybody. Good to see you again here at this workshop. From the number you can feel that this is 26th workshop that the society held it for biosecurity. It's almost 78 months running this program. This is really incredible of the effort which SAS is doing by the management of the MIWA. Really, it's appreciated. I would like to thank all of the contributor either from the system, from the SAS, from the participant, from the companies. Society, aquaculture society really is doing a great job for biosecurity. I would like to emphasize that the government roles to enable the private sector to continue their what you call career in the business, to sustain the business, to encourage other investors to participate in the aquaculture industry. Today we have effort now, we work together. The cooperation in the sector in Saudi Arabia, it is not easy to gather all the competitors in the same table, but we are able to do it. Now, every meeting, there is a technical meeting after the regular meeting. All the technical director from all private sector will work together, will share their problems, will find the solution. We learn from each other. The cooperation now is going between all the companies, really something is appreciated and really highly supported from the government. Again, I would like to emphasize that the government role is to enable the private sector to achieve their target. We support from the regulatory side, from the business support, from the enabling with other entities inside or outside the kingdom, and the private sector should move on. This year, 2020, is still a different year for aquaculture industry or business in Saudi Arabia. Most of the companies move from the struggle stage to the win stage. The profitability started, all the companies, all the sectors today from the north to south, even the freshwater. The result of 2020 is different totally from the previous result. It is give indication that the maturity now of the business is adopted now. It's the big, and this is the best situation for all the companies now. The result now, within 1 year or 2 years more, it will encourage other investors to enter this sector. We have a long wait list of the investors to join this business, but there are struggles. But with this result of 2020, we will see different next year. I'm expecting new company will start next year. We have the first RAS system private sector now is under construction, Haimat al-Bahriya, and we hope to see, inshallah, next quarter, big development and new move. We have NEOM now in the final stage to start the biggest hatchery in Saudi Arabia. This is a good result and good news for all of us in Saudi Arabia. A great result happened in Nakwa last few months, spawning new species, Subaiti and Sibrim, and it is recorded result, and this is really appreciated. Tharawat is moving now, really it's high that in this year in terms of the production and hatchery as well. Tabuk making great results, and they start to move from the previous what you call target. Jazatko is flying in the shrimp, and this is really great result of Jazatko this year. Saudi Fishery came back to the track. Now they have really, they go back to the norm stage and the norm situation. All those results for the marine side is encouraging that this business is a promising business, and from this track we will move on, inshallah, to the next step, inshallah. Freshwater, for me, it's a different story. Few years back, in 2017, the total production of Saudi Arabia, 3,000 ton. The first half of this year, almost 19,000 ton. First half. This big change, it indicates that the freshwater business in Saudi Arabia, it has what you call a lot of potential. There is a new technology. We have now 18 RAS system for freshwater ongoing, as there is 3 projects or 2 projects started in production, and 16 under construction now. Each one it target 1,000 ton. This will make change in the business and the industry. We had a good collaboration with King Abdulaziz University and Mubdi'un Center. We have the unique what you call pilot project for RAS system for salmon. This will be held in Hail, and now construction, I think, it will be started within a few weeks from now. Maybe 1 year from now, we'll invite all of you to hold the workshop of biosecurity in that side, bidnillah. There is a lot of things happen and change in Saudi. Next month, or after 2 months from now, we will hold in the same event, in the same hall, the recognition of Saudi Arabia to be the OIE center for the regional. The laboratory reference for health fish disease will be in Saudi Arabia. Now Saudi is selected to be the reference country for all the region, and we will launch this program and this what you call event in this hall after 2 months from now. Algae and seaweed will be another move, another step. We are working closely with FAO, with GFCM, with KAUST, and with Aramco. We will have a big event in Saudi Arabia. Will be held, inshallah, beginning of December. It will be the biggest event worldwide for algae and seaweed. All this change, all this move in the sector in Saudi Arabia is give indication that we have strongly support from the high-level management, from the Crown Prince especially, for this sector. I wish all the best for all participants, all companies, all private sector, and we will keep continuing, inshallah. We'll see you next quarter with better results, new investment, new investors, and hopefully, inshallah, within few years we'll achieve our target, which we have to deliver to the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ali. General Directorate of Fisheries, Ministry of Environment, Water and Agriculture, and Saudi Aquaculture Society are continuously striving for the betterment of aquaculture industry and production of safe food. Continuing it, we have invited some international speakers, but Dr. Pedros, the fish pathology consultant, is already here with us. He has visited several establishments in the kingdom and have prepared a critical review of aquaculture industry. But we have another speaker, Mr. McIntosh from Thailand, and we have his virtual presentation today. I would like to give a brief introduction of Dr. Robbins McIntosh. Mr. Robbins McIntosh is Executive Vice President, Carrion Pork and Foods Public Company Limited, Bangkok. He joined CP Foods in December 2001 with the responsibility of revitalizing CPF's shrimp culture activities through introduction of sustainable and environmentally friendly shrimp culture technologies to the company and Thailand. Mr. McIntosh has been associated with the international shrimp farming and technology development since 1978, having worked in Brazil, Guatemala, Mexico, Myanmar, India, Philippines, and Thailand. He is most often associated with the development of domesticated high-health SPF shrimp and the development of closed systems, zero water exchange shrimp culture systems, that is biofloc, development of advanced biosecure shrimp hatcheries, and the advanced in the genetic improvement of both the Pacific white shrimp and the black tiger shrimp. Because of the introduction of these technologies into Thailand and Asia, world shrimp production tripled between 2001 and 2011. Currently, he continues with the genetic improvement of shrimp stocks and the introduction of more sustainable, efficient, and intensive culture technologies into South America and the United States. Now, I would like to request Mr. Robbins McIntosh for his presentation, please.
Can I share the screen?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Ask him why it is not working. Call the guy.
Okay, good morning. Again, thank you for that introduction.
Dr. McIntosh, please wait a moment.
Sure.
hear you. Can you check your mic, please?
Can you hear me now?
No sound.
Yes, I can hear you, Robbins.
Okay, my mic is on.
Yeah, but maybe the audience just wait for their confirmation.
Mr. Mati, we can hear you, but we can't hear Mr. Robbins.
Because all of my systems say hello. Let me just check the setting here.
No, you're okay because I can hear you.
You can hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear Kun Robbins. Okay.
Mr. Robbins, can you place a headset to speak, please? We are unable to hear you properly.
I don't have a headset, and I'm using the microphone I always use. And the other fellow, Mr. Mati, that is here in a different computer, a different room, is hearing fine. So it seems to be working. I don't know why it's not going into your set. You're good now?
Dorothy is about Zoom. Is about the signal has been relayed to another area. Yes.
You mean my signal? Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Again, let's start again with a good morning. Thank you, everybody. I wish I could be there. It's a lot easier to present in person than it is on this screen because I can't see you. I can't see whether there's any reaction or not. But I will talk to my screen and hopefully we can get through this. I was asked to give a presentation. Again, this is on the biosecurity workshop. And basically, I'm always asked to do genetics, and everything seems to be about genetics today. But in reality, I'm not a geneticist. I'm really not anything other than somebody that has been doing this too long and failed too many times, but in every failure tried to learn something. And in fact, today I would substitute the word genetics for breeders, or actually we're breeding. Genetics is very little. And in my program in Thailand, I have breeders. I don't have any geneticists. Geneticists are strictly a tool to do the mathematics. The breeders are the ones creating the animals. So I start with something like this, which again shows that genetics is not it alone. So in plant genetics, we have advanced watermelons. And if we treat the watermelon with enough water and fertilizer, it grows big. But the same watermelon that is not managed correctly with not enough water, not enough fertilizer, it doesn't grow. So genetics alone is not the answer to success. I take this example out of an early 1990s experience that I had in Thailand. I think it was 91 or 92, when Thailand imported some advanced European breeds for dairy. And their dairy had always been out in pastures. And so when the advanced genetics came in that were, touted to give you 8,700 kilograms of milk, and then they put them out to pasture in Thailand, and they only got 2,700 kilograms of milk, they started questioning whether they had gotten the correct genetics. The fact is they had gotten the correct genetics, but with genetic improvement, you need to change management to obtain the benefit from that. So you have advanced dairy, you need to have advanced nutrition and management to obtain the benefits of that genetics. So I termed holistic shrimp farming, a term I gave this talk kind of initially in India about 6 years ago, when everything was the genetics this, the genetics that. If you succeeded, it was genetics. If you failed, it was genetics. And in fact, genetics is just a small part. We have to be holistic. We have to be good at every part of shrimp farming. And so we're going to talk about the genetics breeding. We talk about the post-larvae. You talk about the feed. you talk about the pond management, and then you talk about marketing. But you can't formulate on just one activity. It has to be holistic to be successful, especially in a market today that is getting to be more and more competitive. So success is not only from shrimp genetics, it's not just from the post larvae. I remember in the 1990s, everybody blamed post larvae if there was a problem. And in the 1980s, it was feeds that was the problem. And before that, it would be, plankton management. There was always something new that became the problem. And today, generally, it's the genetics that are blamed as the problem, but it's not. You have to have everything under control. So it's combining many appropriate scientific-based knowledge, experiences, and technology. So you do need the appropriate shrimp genetics with high-quality post-larvae. So genetics is the semiconductor that goes into the computer, which is the healthy post-larvae, and being fed high-quality feed in correct amounts of correct protein levels for the requirement in a pond or a culture system. And then that pond is managed to maintain a healthy environment with shrimp harvested efficiently to maintain quality and process for the best markets to obtain the best prices available. You have to do all of that for holistic farming, and you have to be a holistic farmer today to be successful. Now I'm going to talk about Ecuador, because Ecuador is the giant in the room these days. We live in a world of competition. We're not producing within ourselves. We have to compete with the world. We have to compete with the same export markets, and everybody is competing. So you have to be efficient, and Ecuador is setting the scale here. And so what I've done here is I've regressed Ecuadorian production from 2008 on out to 2022. The regression coefficient is 0.94. That's incredible. So if we take that regression, we can see in 2027, they will basically be producing about the total amount for exports today. They'll take care of the whole world if that regression continues to hold. And so far this year, it is holding. They are continuing to go up. And personally, I don't see any reason why they would slow down. So you have to compete with this. So what was the Ecuadorian story? Because Ecuador wasn't always this efficient. It wasn't this aggressive. Well, Ecuador have big ponds, much like Saudi has. They were running similar type of systems. In fact, I think most of the Saudi systems were designed after Ecuadorian type of standards, but they closed the systems. They added auto feed. They added aeration. They added improved feeds. They brought breeding in to the equation. And by combining what I call intensification Ecuadorian style using Asian type technologies, they have created a monster in terms of world competition. And so here I put some of the prices. I don't have the Saudi prices, but you know what they are. But I suspect feed costs are comparable. And so when I look at Ecuador versus India, it's the failure rate that is high cost. So Ecuador has a very low failure rate. Failure rates are a high cost. I suspect Saudi failure rates are very low. So they should be very competitive, that is one of the highest costs. The other one, which is oftentimes overlooked, is overheads. Ecuador overhead is very low. It's incredibly low. But all of that goes into the cost in the competition. So it's not just about what we normally talk in terms of cost to feed the seed, energy. You got to look at the cost of overheads in terms of your competitiveness in the world and the failure rate. Now, one thing that selective genetics has completely changed, it's the size distribution of animals and what is possible in terms of harvest size. Sizes have been moving up for the last 10 years. And this would be a prize example of an animal harvested in a Malaysian pond 4 years ago. It was a 160-gram female cultured in 180 days. So this was not possible when I started breeding the white shrimp back in 2002 in Thailand. This is all new development. So here again, I show this. This is the size distribution of Thai harvests between 2006 and 2021. In 2006, we had 0% 30-gram harvests. In 2021, 45% of all harvests were greater than 30 grams. So this distribution is continually moved up with the improvement of the genetic stocks. If we look at growth rate, we can see where our stocks were back in 2018. Here's the line. You can see that at 50 days, we would have probably gotten about a 15-gram shrimp in 2018. In 50 days now, we're getting a 30-gram shrimp under similar conditions. If I look at the South American stocks, basically 50 days gives you an 8 or 9 gram shrimp. And very difficult with those stocks to reach 30 grams, as we had here in 2006. So this is a result of breeding, and that's one of the good things for breeding in terms of what we've accomplished. But we're also recognizing now the need to pay more attention to disease tolerance and robustness as our environments get more stressful. So CP advanced lines improve robustness and white spot tolerance and provide superior growth. So here I show what we call CP Turbo. That's our standard line. CP Advanced is a line that we have incorporated some white spot tolerance and overall increased robustness into. And this is the original Van Amme, the South American line, unimproved. So if we look at growth, we can see that this is slow. If we look at Turbo, this is very fast. And our improved line that has greater disease tolerance is an intermediate, which is an improvement. A white spot tolerance, again, you can see in 2018, the advanced lines and the Turbo lines. Let me give an advance or a thank you to Saudi Arabia and to NACWA. The advanced lines are basically a result of collaborations we've had with NACWA. And we have basically created this more robust, faster growing line. It's not as fast as the Turbo line, but it is significant, and it is a significant improvement for ponds such as are in Saudi Arabia or in Ecuador, do not have the biosecurity of the small pond systems that we run in Southeast Asia. Now, heterozygosity and diversity is important. And so here I show a bunch of markers that we have done. This is South American Ecuadorian, maybe 6 populations out of Ecuador that we sequence. It all falls into this area here. There's not a lot of difference in the Ecuadorian programs. They're pretty similar. But if we look at our advanced, and we've got 3 advanced lines in Thailand running these systems, and each of these are very distinct with high degrees of heterozygosity. So the programs are working in combining this robustness characteristic, heterozygosity, diversity, with faster growth. Now, as I said, genetics is one thing, breeding is another, and breeding requires that genetics be housed in a clean, healthy broodstock. And for that, you need nucleus breeding. It's absolutely essential. So the first thing we did in Thailand back in 2004, I set up the first nucleus breeding centers. We now have 5 of them. They're all inland, they're isolated. We usually think of nucleus breeding, Hawaii islands. These are on islands, but they're islands within rubber plantation. There's islands within rice areas. They're landlocked islands. But it's the same concept in that they're protected. And again, you have to have constant surveillance to ensure that you are not getting an infection accidentally. Again, same genetics here. So This essentially would have been Guatemalan shrimp, wild shrimp in 1996. And Guatemala's average size at harvest had gone down to 12 grams. Lots of size disparity, unhealthy shrimp. We take the same genetics, we clean it up, we create an SPF stock, and all of a sudden you have uniformity, much better growth. Without any improvement, just by cleaning the stock, we improve growth rates 20% or more. So health is a very important component, as important, if not more important, than the actual genetics of the animal. And then, of course, that healthy brood stock, it's got to go to a hatchery, because farmers don't buy brood stock, they buy post-larvae. And so it's too many hatcheries I've sold healthy brood stock for, and they have unhealthy hatcheries, and the farmers get infections from the hatcheries. And of course, it goes back, well, the genetics were bad. No, the genetics were okay. The hatchery did not perform its duties in maintaining a healthy post-larvae body. So great genetics and an unhealthy PL, that equals nothing. Healthy PLs, they're even, uniform size. This is an SPF monodon. This is an SPF Van Amy. But the common denominator, they're active, they're uniform, they're faster growing, they're quite beautiful. And so healthy post-larvae hatcheries have to have high standards. So the first thing that we did when I came to Thailand with the SPF concept is we had to rework each and every hatchery. All of Asia had to reconform to this concept of keeping clean, healthy PLs. And so we created modular hatcheries. The yellow hatchery there is a hatchery we built in China. Smaller tanks. We had to have this female, the fecundity goes even higher, but we can get satisfactory fecundity in unablated now. Quality control becomes important. So if I had to name one quality control parameter I would look at, it is the amount of TCBS colonies in the PLs. And so we have a strict standard that the greens have to be less than 10 to the 3 per gram, yellows less than 10 to 4 to the gram. If we have greater than 10 to the 3 greens, we have a much higher risk of pond failure and issues. And so we do pay attention to this. And then PCR on all PLs, especially for EHP now, because that becomes a critical pathogen that is very easy to get into hatcheries if you don't have the correct filtration systems and you are in an environment of EHP. So feed, this is another component for holistic farming. Usually when we talk about feed, people want to just talk about protein level, the smell. They want to talk about how many expensive functional ingredients are in it. They want to talk about price. But really, not all of that is what's in feed is absolutely essential for high quality feed. I know, like in the Americas, when I was in the Americas, usually they don't test the feeds, the quality of the ingredients at all. They wait till the pellet is done, and if they find a problem, too late. In Asian feed mills, at least in Thailand, ingredients don't get into the mill until they're tested and they pass the QC standards. And if the truck doesn't pass, it gets sent away. So again, the quality of the ingredients is important as the formulation. And then the size of the pellet and how it is appropriate to the size of the shrimp. In the Americas, we used to just use one size pellet. We maybe grind it up. And I used to think that that was the way to go. But when you study what really happens in Asia and how they are very careful about increasing the size of the pellet, the grind, to the size of the shrimp, you can see that that is very important if you were to get maximum performance. So again, in CP in Thailand, we're very careful of matching the correct pellet size to the shrimp size. Also, we never think about things like uniformity of the pellet as an indicator of quality and the texture. Shrimp are very particular to texture. If the pellet is too hard, they won't eat it. If the pellet has wrong feel, they will drop it. So texture becomes very, very important. Again, developing that high quality feed. And then today, we've got a lot of people running around claiming that extrusion is the only way to go. This is not really correct. You can have great pellets if you've got great manufacturing capability. Great pellets can be as good as and better than extrusion if the equipment is correct. I remember in CP, they first introduced complete lines of extrusion back in the early 90s. They ran it for 2 years and they got rid of them to go back to pelleting, because with pelleting, they had more control on all of those features we talked about in terms of the durability, in terms of the texture, in terms of the size, and in terms of quality of ingredients. So you don't have to have extrusion. You can have pellets, but you need high quality pellets, which means high quality manufacturing. Another component to holistic farming, again, is the farm management, the biosecurity, again, controlling levels of pathogens, stocking a density which is appropriate for the systems that you're running. If you overstock, you're not going to have the performance. Now, what are those conditions determined by? Well, they're determined by what feed you have, what oxygenation equipment you have, what your bottom management is, your water management, population management. So everything has to be managed in a way that it fits. Too oftentimes, we again get hijacked by just increasing density and forgetting that as we increase density, other factors come into play that we must manage. Otherwise, we change the environment, and all of a sudden, we no longer have a biosecure system. We have the conditions to bring out diseases, to make bacteria multiply, to create a pathogen soup that leads to failure. And so this is what I mean by reduction in pathogen loads. On the right, we talk about tolerance in families. I use this example to show how important SPF is and how most infections of white spot come from hatcheries from PLs. In 2003, all wild broodstock from Monodon were tested for white spot, and only white spot free by PCR testing were stocked. But there still was close to a 30% failure rate. SPF animals were started to introduce in 2003. And by 2006, 2007, and 2008, the majority of Thailand had switched to SPF Monodon. So these are highly non-tolerant animals. But we still only had a 5% failure rate from white spot from a 30% before with PCR testing. This is the power of SPF. So the 5% that failed here basically did not come from PLs. This came from the environment. But the majority of white spot in Thailand had originated in wild PLs that got through detection with PCR testing. So stress, this is again, we talked about matching the conditions. Disease is very different than the presence of a pathogen. And the variable is stress. So just to show that, I'm showing APINs or EMS. So we can infect in the laboratory EMS in a non-stressed environment, and we get 100% survival. We stress the animals with the same challenge with a nitrite, and all of a sudden, different families have mortality under the same conditions that there was 100% before with no stress. So stress is probably the biggest factor in determining if you're going to get disease. Maybe a bigger factor than actually the presence of the pathogen alone. So what are known stresses? Low oxygen, Now on oxygen, again, everybody uses a meter. I'm not a big fan of meters because when I do correlations, I can't correlate success with meter readings. I'll give you an example. In Brazil, we have an intensive farm there. If the aeration is at greater than 50 horsepower per hectare, I have 100% success. If it goes below 35 horsepower per hectare, I have 0 success. But the farm manager tells me the oxygens are good everywhere. Well, you're putting more oxygen in the water at 50